The smell reaches Captain Nathaniel Brenner before he even crosses the threshold of the examination room. It is sweet. Wrong. The kind of sweet that comes from tissue dying from the inside out. He has smelled it before. Normandy, the Ardennes, 1,000 field dressing stations where young men arrived with wounds that had festered for days in foxholes and forests. The smell always meant the same thing. Time was running out. The girl sitting on the metal examination table cannot be more than 19 years old. Her hands shake so violently that she has to grip the edge of the table just to stay upright. She wears the torn gray-blue uniform of a Luftwaffe auxiliary, the kind of uniform that put women on anti-aircraft crews and radio posts when Germany ran out of men to fight its losing war. Mud cakes her boots. Dirt streaks her face. Her left forearm is wrapped in layers of fabric that might once have been white, but are now the color of rust and yellow bile. 2 American military police officers stand by the door. They brought her in 10 minutes ago, captured 3 days earlier near a collapsed supply depot outside Kassel, found hiding in a barn with 5 other women from her unit, all of them starving, all of them wounded in one way or another. This one would not stop shaking. Brenner approaches slowly. The girl watches him with wide eyes that remind him of a deer he once saw caught in a snare when he was a boy in Pennsylvania. That same mixture of fear and resignation, that same certainty that whatever comes next will hurt. He stops 3 feet away. She flinches anyway. "Do you speak English?" he asks. The girl nods once, then whispers in a voice barely louder than breathing, "A little, yes, a little." Her accent is thick, but the words are clear enough. "What is your name?" She hesitates, swallows hard. Her throat works like she is trying to force something down that will not go. "Margaret Meyer," she says finally. But everyone calls me Greta." Brenner nods, keeps his voice even, calm, the way he would speak to a spooked horse. "I am Captain Brenner. I am going to examine your arm. Can you tell me when you were wounded?" Greta looks down at her bandaged forearm like she is seeing it for the first time. 5 days, she whispers. Maybe 6, I am not sure. The days, they ran together. Who treated the wound? Another girl, in my unit, Frida. She wrapped it, with cloth, whatever she could find. Brenner glances at the bandages again. Multiple layers, different fabrics, tied tight with strips that might have come from an undershirt or a coat lining, the kind of battlefield medicine that saves lives when there is nothing else available, and the kind that kills when infection sets in. "Have you changed the bandages since then?" Greta shakes her head. The movement is small, ashamed. "I was afraid to look." Brenner understands. He has seen it before. Soldiers who walked on broken ankles for days because acknowledging the injury meant acknowledging they might not make it home. The human mind is a strange thing. It will choose denial over pain every single time. "I need to see the wound now," he says gently. "I am going to cut the bandages away. It might hurt when the fabric pulls free. Can you stay still for me?" Greta nods again, but her breathing quickens, shallow, fast, the kind of breathing that comes right before panic. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes appears at Brenner's shoulder. She is a surgical nurse from Ohio, 32 years old, steady hands, steadier nerves. She has been with Brenner since France, and she knows what he needs before he asks for it. She sets a tray of instruments on the table beside Greta: scissors, forceps, gauze, saline, the tools of their trade. Greta stares at the scissors like they are a guillotine blade. "Just the bandages," Brenner says quietly. "Nothing else. Not yet." He picks up the scissors and reaches for the outermost layer of fabric. Greta jerks her arm back instinctively, then forces it forward again. Trembling, Brenner cuts. The first layer comes away easily. It is wool, probably from a coat, stiff with dried blood and dirt, but still intact. The second layer is cotton, thinner, stuck to the layer beneath it. When Brenner pulls gently, the fabric resists. Greta gasps. Her face goes white. Tears well in her eyes, but do not fall. "I am sorry," Brenner murmurs. "I will be as careful as I can." He works the fabric free slowly, inch by inch. Greta bites her lower lip so hard he worries she will draw blood. Her knuckles are bone white against the metal table edge. The third layer is gauze. It should be white. It is brown, yellow at the edges. When Brenner touches it, his fingers come away damp. That is when the smell intensifies. Sweet, rotting, unmistakable. Sarah Hayes inhales sharply through her nose. She has smelled it too. Brenner cuts through the final layer with quick, precise movements. The gauze peels away in strips. Some of it sticks. Some of it tears. Greta's breathing hitches with every pull, but she does not cry out. When the last piece comes free, Brenner sets the scissors down and stares. The wound runs from Greta's wrist to halfway up her forearm. Jagged. Deep. The kind of wound that comes from shrapnel tearing through flesh at high velocity. The edges are ragged where metal ripped instead of cut. But the wound itself is not what makes Brenner's jaw tighten. The entire length of the cut is swollen. The skin around it stretched tight and shiny like an overinflated balloon. Red streaks radiate outward from the wound. Spider veins of infection spreading toward her elbow, toward her shoulder, toward her heart. In the center of the wound there is pus, thick, greenish-white, pooling in the deepest part of the cut where muscle tissue should be pink and healthy. Instead, the muscle is gray, black in places, dead. Brenner touches the skin near the edge of the wound with 2 fingers. It is hot, fever hot, the kind of heat that radiates from infection burning through tissue faster than the body can fight it. Greta looks down at her arm. She sees what Brenner sees, and she breaks. It is not a scream, it is not a sob, it is something quieter and more terrible, a sound that comes from deep in the chest where hope dies and certainty takes its place. The sound of someone realizing they are not going to survive. "Oh God," she whispers. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." Her whole body begins to shake, not just her hands now, everything. Her shoulders, her legs, her head, shaking like she is freezing to death in the middle of a field hospital in April. Brenner puts a hand on her shoulder, firm, grounding. "Greta, look at me." She does not look. She stares at the wound, at the infection spreading like fire through dry grass, at the proof that her body is failing her. "Greta." Brenner's voice is sharper now, command voice, the one that cuts through the shock. "Look at me." She drags her eyes up. Tears stream down her face, but she meets his gaze. "Your wounds are spreading," Brenner says slowly, clearly, making sure she understands every word. "The infection has reached the deep tissue. Without immediate intervention, you will lose the arm by morning. Do you understand?" Greta nods. Her lips move, but no sound comes out. Brenner leans closer. "I need to clean this wound. I need to cut away the dead tissue. If I do not do it now, the infection will reach your bloodstream. If it reaches your bloodstream, you will die. Do you understand?" Another nod, smaller this time. "Will you let me help you?" Greta's eyes search his face, looking for something. Truth, maybe. Or mercy. Or just proof that he means what he says. Then she whispers a single word. "Please." Brenner straightens. He looks at Sarah Hayes and sees his own concern reflected in her eyes. This is not just an infected wound. This is something worse. He leans down again, examines the wound more closely. The tissue at the edges crackles faintly under his fingers. He presses gently, and there is a strange sensation, like pressing on bubble wrap, air trapped under the skin. His stomach tightens. "Sarah," he says quietly, "get me a syringe. I need to aspirate." Hayes moves quickly. She hands him a needle and syringe from the tray. Brenner inserts the needle into the swollen tissue near the wound and pulls back on the plunger. The syringe fills with fluid. But not just fluid. Gas. Tiny bubbles mixed with the pus. Brenner withdraws the needle and holds the syringe up to the light. "Gas gangrene," he says. Not loud, just stating a fact. Sarah Hayes closes her eyes briefly. When she opens them again, her expression is carefully neutral. Professional. But Brenner knows what she is thinking. Gas gangrene means bacteria that produce gas as they consume tissue. It spreads fast, kills faster. In the field without proper antibiotics, it is a death sentence measured in hours, not days. Greta does not know what gas gangrene means, but she knows the way Brenner and Hayes look at each other. She knows the silence that follows his words. What does that mean? Her voice is very small. Brenner sets the syringe down, turns back to her. It means the infection is worse than I first thought, he says honestly. It means we have to move very quickly. Will you? Greta swallows hard, forces the words out. Will you cut it off? The question hangs in the air between them. Brenner looks at this 19-year-old girl sitting on his examination table. Enemy combatant by definition, prisoner of war by circumstance, patient by the only measure that matters in this room. He thinks about his sister, Margaret, dead at 16 from an infected cut on her hand that a doctor refused to treat properly. Refused because their family could not afford his fee. Refused because Margaret was just a poor girl from a mill town and there were paying patients waiting. Brenner became a surgeon because of Margaret, so that no one would ever again die from something that could be fixed if someone just cared enough to try. He looks Greta in the eyes and says what he should have said to his sister's doctor all those years ago. Not if we move fast. The words settle between them like a promise. Greta's shoulders sag. Relief or resignation, Brenner cannot tell. What do you need me to do? She asks. I need you to be brave, Brenner says. Can you do that? Greta nods, but her eyes betray her. She is terrified. Sarah Hayes begins laying out instruments on a second tray. Scalpels, forceps, irrigation solution, sulfa powder, everything they will need for debridement. Brenner pulls on surgical gloves. The rubber snaps against his wrists with a sound that makes Greta flinch. There is something you need to know, he says as he works. We do not have anesthesia available for prisoners of war, not unless the surgery is immediately life-threatening. This, he gestures to her arm, this is bad. But technically you are not dying right now, which means I cannot give you anything for the pain. Greta stares at him. You mean, her voice cracks, you mean I will be awake? Yes. For all of it? Yes. She looks down at her arm, at the wound that is killing her, at the infection that has already spread further than Brenner wants to admit. Then she looks back at Brenner. How long will it take? 40 minutes, maybe more. Greta closes her eyes. Her whole body trembles. Sarah Hayes reaches into a drawer and pulls out a thick leather strap. It is worn smooth from use. From other patients, biting down through other procedures, other pain. She holds it out to Greta. When it hurts, Hayes says gently, bite down on this. It helps. Greta looks at the strap, then at her arm, then back at the strap. She shakes her head. No. Hayes blinks. No? I do not want it. Brenner exchanges a glance with Hayes, then looks back at Greta. The pain will be severe, he says. You might want something to... I deserve the pain. The words come out flat, final. Brenner stops. What? Greta's eyes are wet, but her voice is steady now, hard, like she has made a decision and will not be moved from it. 6 girls from my unit died in the woods. We walked for 5 days with no food and no medicine. They died, and I lived. I should have died with them. I deserve to feel this. The room goes quiet. Brenner has heard this before. Survivor's guilt. The irrational certainty that living when others died is a crime that demands punishment. He has seen soldiers refuse morphine after amputations, seen men tear out their own stitches because they believed they did not deserve to heal. It never stops being awful. He crouches down so he is eye level with Greta. Listen to me, he says quietly. Pain is not punishment. Pain is just pain. It does not care whether you deserve it or not. It just hurts. and there is no honor in suffering when you do not have to. Greta meets his eyes. Hers are bright with unshed tears. "But I do have to," she whispers. "Do you not see? If I do not feel it, if I do not remember, then they died for nothing." Brenner holds her gaze for a long moment. Then he nods slowly. "All right," he says. "No strap." He stands, turns to the instrument tray, picks up a scalpel, and tests the edge with his thumb. Behind him, he hears Greta take a deep, shuddering breath. "Captain Brenner?" He turns. "Will it work?" she asks. "Will you save my arm?" Brenner looks at the wound, at the infection spreading like poison through her flesh, at the girl who is too young to be here and too broken to believe she deserves to survive. He thinks about Margaret again, about all the people who die because someone decides they are not worth saving. "Yes," he says, "it is not a promise he can keep. But it is the only answer he has." Greta nods once, then grips the edge of the table with both hands and closes her eyes. "I am ready," she whispers. Sarah Hayes moves to Greta's side, places one hand on her shoulder, not restraining, just present. Brenner picks up the scalpel and begins. The first cut is shallow. Brenner trims the edge of the wound where the skin has begun to die. The tissue is gray, lifeless. It comes away under the scalpel blade like old leather. Greta's hands tighten on the table edge. Her knuckles go white, but she does not make a sound. Sarah Hayes stands beside her. One hand rests on Greta's shoulder, steady, grounding. A silent reminder that she is not alone in this. Brenner works quickly. His movements are precise, economical. 20 years of surgical training distilled into muscle memory. Cut, examine, remove, cut again. The scalpel whispers through dead tissue. Greta's breathing quickens. Short, shallow gasps that come faster with each pass of the blade. She keeps her eyes closed, squeezes them shut so tight that tears leak from the corners and run down her temples. Brenner reaches the deeper layers of the wound. The infection has tunneled into the muscle, created pockets of pus buried beneath healthy tissue. He can see them, dark spaces where fluid has collected, where bacteria are feeding and multiplying and spreading. He switches to a larger scalpel. "This is going to hurt more," he warns. Greta nods without opening her eyes. Brenner makes the first deep incision. Greta jerks. Her whole body goes rigid. A sound escapes her throat. Not quite a scream, more like air being forced out of lungs that have forgotten how to breathe. Her right hand flies up instinctively, reaches for her wounded arm, to protect it, to pull it away. Sarah Hayes catches Greta's wrist gently, firmly. "No," Hayes says quietly. "Let him work." Greta's hand trembles in Hayes's grip, then slowly, reluctantly. It lowers back to the table. Brenner opens the first abscess. Pus wells up, thick and greenish white. The smell intensifies. Sweet rot. The stench of tissue breaking down faster than the body can repair it. He irrigates the pocket with saline. The fluid runs pink, then red, then clear as the infection washes away. Blood follows, fresh red blood from living tissue underneath. That is good. That means there is still healthy muscle beneath the infection, still something worth saving. Brenner scrapes away the necrotic material, cuts deeper, and finds something that makes him pause. When he probes with forceps, there is resistance, not tissue, something else. He pulls gently. Threads emerge, gray cotton fibers embedded deep in the muscle itself. "What is that?" Hayes asks quietly. Brenner continues pulling. A strip of fabric comes free, torn cotton, driven into the wound and trapped there when the muscle swelled shut around it. He holds it up. "Part of the bandage," he says. "It is inside the muscle tissue." Greta's eyes flutter open, glassy with pain. She looks at the fragment of cloth. "Frida," she whispers. "She wrapped it so tight to stop the bleeding." Brenner sets the fabric aside and continues probing, finds more threads, more fragments. Each one a vector carrying bacteria deeper into healthy tissue. She saved your life that day, Brenner says as he works, removing each piece carefully. But this fabric carried the infection straight into the muscle. That is why it spread so fast. Greta's face crumples. So Frida, it was because she did what she could with what she had. You both did. Brenner removes the last visible thread, opens a second abscess, a third. Each one releases a fresh wave of purulent fluid. Each one makes Greta's body tense and shake. She is trying so hard not to scream. Her jaws clenched so tight Brenner can see the muscles jumping in her cheek. Her teeth are grinding together. Her breath comes in short, sharp bursts through her nose, but she does not scream. 20 minutes pass. Brenner has removed nearly half the infected muscle tissue. The wound is larger now than when he started, wider, deeper. Exposed bone glints white at the bottom. Greta's face has gone the color of old parchment. Sweat plasters her hair to her forehead. Her whole body trembles with shock and pain and exhaustion. But her hands stay on the table. She does not pull away, does not fight. Sarah Hayes leans close to Greta's ear. "You are doing so well," she murmurs. "So well. Just a little more. Stay with me. Just a little more." Greta's eyes flutter open, glassy, unfocused. She looks at Hayes without really seeing her. Then she whispers something, so quiet Brenner almost misses it. German words, slurred with pain. Hayes goes very still. Then she responds, in German. Her pronunciation is careful, accented, but clear. "Du bist stark, noch ein bisschen." You are strong, just a little more. Greta's eyes focus suddenly, sharp. She stares at Hayes like she is seeing her for the first time. "Sie sprechen Deutsch?" Her voice is barely audible. Hayes nods. "Ein wenig. My grandmother taught me, before she died." "Where?" Greta has to stop. Breathe. Try again. "Where was she from?" "Hamburg." Greta's face crumples. Fresh tears spill over. "I am from Hamburg," she whispers. The words hang between them. Two women, enemy nations, same city, connected by a thread so thin it should not matter. But in this moment it is everything. "What was her name?" Greta asks. "Your grandmother." "Helene Fischer." Greta closes her eyes. "My street, Fischerstrasse, Fischer Street." Maybe she knew it. Maybe. Something shifts in the room. Some invisible weight lifting. Not gone, just lighter. Greta's grip on the table loosens slightly. Her breathing steadies. She is still in agony, but she is no longer alone in it. Brenner continues working, cutting, draining, irrigating. The pile of blood-soaked gauze on the tray grows higher. 30 minutes now. He is nearly done. The wound is clean, raw and bleeding, but clean. No more gray tissue, no more pockets of infection. Just exposed muscle and bone and blood vessels that pulse with living circulation. He packs the wound with sulfa powder. The white crystals stick to the wet tissue. They will fight the bacteria, kill what is left of the infection, give Greta's body a chance to heal. Then he begins the wrapping, layer after layer of clean white gauze, tight enough to compress the wound, not so tight it cuts off circulation. Greta's breathing has changed. Slower now, deeper. She is still crying, but the tears are different. Not pain anymore. Relief, maybe, or disbelief that it is finally over. Brenner ties off the last layer of bandage. "Done," he says. The word sounds strange in the quiet room, too simple for what they have just been through. Greta does not respond. She lies very still, staring at the ceiling, her face wet with tears and sweat. Sarah Hayes retrieves a damp cloth and gently wipes Greta's face, forehead, cheeks, temples. The simple kindness of it seems to break something inside Greta. She turns her face away and sobs, deep, wrenching sobs that shake her whole frame. Hayes lets her cry, just keeps one hand on her shoulder. Present. Brenner strips off his gloves. His hands are steady, but there is blood under his fingernails. Always is after a procedure like this, no matter how careful he is. "The worst is over," he tells Greta quietly. Greta does not answer, cannot answer. She just cries and cries like she has been holding it in for 5 days and can finally let go. 2 orderlies arrive to move her to the recovery ward. They lift her onto a stretcher. She winces as they jostle her arm, but makes no sound. As they carry her out, Greta turns her head, looks back at Brenner. Her lips move, forming words he cannot hear over the sound of boots on concrete, but he reads them anyway. "Thank you." He nods once, then she is gone. Sarah Hayes begins cleaning the instruments, dropping scalpels and forceps into a metal pan with sharp clinks. "Gas gangrene," she says quietly. Not a question, a statement. "Yes." "How much time does she have?" Brenner looks at the pile of bloody gauze, at the instruments stained with infection. 12 hours, he says. Maybe less. If the infection is in her bloodstream, the sulfa powder will not be enough. Hayes is quiet for a moment, then asks the question they are both thinking. "Should we have amputated?" Brenner considers, weighs the options he has weighed 100 times before. Amputation means certainty. Cut off the infected limb, stop the spread, save the life. Maybe. But it also means taking something that can never be returned, especially for someone who is 19 years old and already believes she does not deserve to survive. "No," he says finally. "We gave her a chance. That is all we can do." Hayes nods, but her expression is troubled. They both know how this usually ends. The POW ward is separated from the main hospital by a canvas curtain and guarded by a single military police officer. 6 metal cots arranged in 2 rows, 5 of them occupied by German soldiers, 1 now by Greta. She lies very still. Her bandaged arm rests across her chest. Her eyes are open, but she does not seem to see anything. Corporal Emil Stahl occupies the cot nearest the entrance. Broken leg from a Jeep accident. He watches Greta with undisguised contempt. When the orderlies leave, he speaks, loud enough for everyone to hear. "So they waste medicine on women now, while real soldiers lie here with weak old bandages." No one responds. Stahl continues. "The fatherland is dying because we let girls play soldier. Look at her, crying like a child. This is what happens when we forget our place." Private Joseph Vogel lies 2 cots down, shrapnel wounds in his chest, young, maybe 22. He looks at Stahl with something like disgust. "She just had surgery without anesthesia," Vogel says quietly. "I would like to see you do the same." Stahl snorts. "I would not have needed it. Men endure, women break." Greta gives no sign she hears them. She just stares at the ceiling, tears running silently into her hair. The hours pass. Sarah Hayes checks on her every 2 hours, takes her temperature, examines the bandages for fresh bleeding, offers water that Greta accepts with trembling hands. Each time Hayes visits, the bandages are clean, dry, no drainage, no blood. That should be a good sign. But Brenner knows better. Sometimes the worst infections are the quiet ones, the ones that do not show on the surface because they are spreading beneath it. In the blood, in the organs, in places a bandage cannot protect. By evening, Greta is sitting up, drinking broth, speaking in quiet monosyllables when Hayes asks how she feels. By 9 p.m. she is lying down again, pale but stable. By 11 p.m., Sarah Hayes is walking back to the nurses' quarters thinking maybe, just maybe, this one will make it. Then, at 11:47 p.m., her name crackles over the field telephone. "Lieutenant Hayes, POW ward, now." She runs. When she arrives, Greta is convulsing, her whole body jerking in rhythmic spasms, her eyes rolled back white, foam flecking her lips. The MP guard stands frozen, useless. Hayes grabs Greta's shoulders, holds her down, keeps her from thrashing off the cot. "Someone get Captain Brenner," she shouts. The guard runs. Greta's body goes rigid, then limp. The convulsion passes. Hayes checks her pulse. Fast. Too fast. Fluttering under her fingers like a trapped bird. She touches Greta's forehead. burning. Hayes grabs a thermometer from her kit, slides it under Greta's tongue, counts 30 seconds that feel like 30 minutes. When she pulls it out, the mercury reads 40.2 degrees Celsius, 104.4 Fahrenheit. Brain damage territory. Brenner arrives at a run, still in his undershirt, hair standing up. He took the stairs 3 at a time from his quarters. He does not ask questions, just kneels beside the cot and pulls back the bandage. The dressing underneath is clean, dry, no new drainage, but when he touches the skin around the wound, it is hot, fever hot. And the red streaks that had started to fade this afternoon are back, darker, longer, reaching toward her shoulder now, toward her heart. Sepsis, he says. The word drops like a stone. Sepsis means the infection is in her bloodstream, means bacteria circulating through her body with every heartbeat, attacking organs, overwhelming her immune system faster than it can respond, means she is dying. Hayes knows what comes next. They both do. Amputation, cut off the source of infection. Hope the sepsis has not spread too far. Hope her body can fight off what remains once the primary source is gone. But Brenner is staring at Greta's arm, at the red streak spreading upward, and his face is troubled. It is not just the wound, he says slowly. Hayes frowns. What? The infection. Look at the pattern. It is spreading too fast, too evenly. He traces the red lines with one finger. They branch like lightning, following blood vessels, following lymph nodes. This started hours ago, Brenner says. Maybe during the surgery, maybe before. Cutting off the arm now will not stop it. The bacteria are already everywhere. Hayes feels something cold settle in her stomach. So amputation will not save her. No. They are quiet for a moment, watching Greta breathe, each breath shallow and quick, her body trying to outrun an infection it can never escape. What do we do? Hayes asks. Brenner stands, paces 3 steps, turns, paces back. High-dose sulfa, he says finally. Intravenous, triple the standard dosage. Hayes stares at him. Sir, that dosage could cause kidney failure, liver damage. She could die from the treatment. She will die without it. We do not have enough sulfa for that kind of dosing, not for a POW. Brenner's jaw tightens. Then we use what we have, and we hope it is enough. He looks at Hayes. She sees the weight in his eyes, the burden of choosing between bad options and worse ones. This is not protocol, she says quietly. No. You could be court-martialed. Yes. Hayes holds his gaze for a long moment, sees the same determination she saw when he decided to operate on Greta in the first place, the same refusal to let regulations decide who lives and who dies. She nods. I will get the sulfa. She returns 5 minutes later with 3 vials, nearly their entire remaining supply. Brenner mixes the powder with saline, draws it into a syringe, finds a vein in Greta's right arm. The needle slides in. He depresses the plunger slowly, watching, waiting for a reaction. Greta does not wake, but her breathing changes, evens out slightly. Brenner withdraws the needle, tapes a cotton ball over the injection site. Now we wait, he says. They pull chairs to either side of Greta's cot, Brenner on the left, Hayes on the right, like sentries guarding something precious. Midnight passes, then 1 a.m., then 2. Greta's fever stays high. Her pulse stays fast. The red streaks do not fade, but they do not spread either. Brenner checks her temperature every 30 minutes. 40.1, 40.2, 40.1 again. At 3 a.m., Greta's eyes flutter open, glassy, confused. She sees Brenner sitting beside her, tries to speak. Her lips form words, but no sound comes out. Brenner leans close. Herr Doctor, she whispers. Her voice is cracked, dry. Am I dying? He could lie. Tell her she is fine. Tell her everything will be all right, but he has never lied to a patient, and he will not start now. I do not know, he says honestly, But I am trying very hard to make sure you do not. Greta's eyes search his face, looking for something. Truth, maybe, or just proof that he will not give up on her. She finds it. Thank you, she breathes. Then she slips back under. At 4:23 a.m., something changes. Brenner feels it before he sees it, a shift in the air. In the rhythm of Greta's breathing, he touches her forehead, still hot. But not burning. Not anymore. He grabs the thermometer, checks. 39.8 degrees, 103.6, down half a degree. He checks again 10 minutes later, 39.6. Hayes sees his face. Is she? Fever is breaking. They watch, barely breathing themselves. As Greta's temperature drops, degree by degree, minute by minute, by 5 a.m., it is 38.9. By 6 a.m., it is 38.2. By the time the sun rises, Greta's eyes open, clear, focused. She looks at Brenner, then at Hayes, then down at her bandaged arm. I am still alive, she says, like she cannot quite believe it. Brenner unwraps the bandage, slowly, carefully. The wound looks better. The swelling has decreased. The redness has stopped spreading. The skin feels cooler under his fingers. The infection has not disappeared, but it has stopped advancing. She is going to keep her arm. Greta stares at the wound, at the thick line of stitches holding her torn flesh together, at the proof that her body has fought and won. I thought, her voice breaks, I thought I was going to die. Brenner rewraps the bandage, ties it off securely. Not today, he says. Greta closes her eyes. Tears leak from the corners, but she is smiling. For the first time since she arrived, she looks like what she is, 19 years old, alive, and maybe, just maybe, going to stay that way. The days that follow blur together like watercolors running in rain. Greta sleeps, wakes, sleeps again, her body fighting battles she cannot see. White blood cells against bacteria, healthy tissue against dying flesh. Life against death measured in degrees of fever and milliliters of drainage. Sarah Hayes changes her bandages twice daily, morning and evening, each time unwrapping the gauze with careful hands, examining the wound for signs the infection is returning. Each time the wound looks better, the swelling decreases, the redness fades. The angry red streaks that reach toward her shoulder retreat inch by inch back toward the original injury site. On the third day, Greta can sit up without help. On the fifth day, she can hold a spoon in her left hand. The grip is weak, the hand shakes, but she can do it. On the seventh day, she asks for a mirror. Hayes hesitates, then brings one. Greta stares at her reflection. At the hollow cheeks and dark circles and hair that hangs limp and unwashed, she looks like she has aged 10 years in 10 days. But she is alive. I look terrible, she says. Hayes smiles. You look like someone who fought a war and won. Greta sets the mirror down, looks at her bandaged arm. Did I? She asks quietly. Win? You are still here. That counts. The POW ward has changed in the week since Greta's surgery. The hostility that hung in the air like smoke has dissipated, replaced by something else, not quite camaraderie, more like mutual recognition. They are all prisoners, all wounded, all waiting to learn what comes next. Corporal Emil Stahl no longer makes comments about women in uniform. He watches Greta during bandage changes with an expression that might be respect or shame, or both. One morning he calls across the ward in German, Fräulein, you were at the anti-aircraft batteries near Kassel, yes? Greta looks up, wary. Yes? My cousin was there. Gerhard Stahl. Do you know him? I knew a Gerhard. Tall, red hair, glasses. Stahl's face softens. Yes, that is him. Is he? He cannot finish the question. Greta shakes her head slowly. I do not know. We scattered when the Americans came. I have not seen him since. Stahl nods. looks away. Thank you. It is the first civil words he has spoken to her. Private Josef Vogel shares his bread ration with Greta every meal. She tries to refuse, but he insists. You need strength to heal, he says simply. His chest wounds are healing slowly. The shrapnel missed his lungs but cracked 2 ribs. Every breath hurts, but he never complains. One afternoon, while Greta is flexing her fingers trying to rebuild strength, Vogel asks her a question. Why did you join? The Luftwaffe Auxiliary. Greta stops flexing, considers the question. I did not join, she says finally. I was conscripted in 1944. They needed radio operators. I had worked at a telephone exchange before the war, so they took me. Did you want to fight? No. She looks at her wounded arm. No one wants to fight. But when your country calls you, answer, or at least that is what they told us. Vogel is quiet for a moment, then says something that surprises them both. I think that was a lie. Greta meets his eyes, sees the same doubt she has been carrying, the same questions about orders and duty and whether any of it mattered. Yes, she agrees softly. I think it was. Captain Brenner visits the ward twice daily, morning rounds and evening rounds. He checks each patient methodically, asks about pain, about appetite, about bowel movements and sleep and all the mundane details that determine whether a body is healing or failing. When he reaches Greta's cot, he always spends extra time, unwrapping the bandage completely, examining every inch of the wound, testing muscle response, range of motion, grip strength. Make a fist, he says. Greta tries. Her fingers curl slowly, incompletely. The thumb does not quite reach the palm. Better, Brenner says. Last week you could not move the thumb at all. Will it ever work normally? He considers his answer carefully. You have nerve damage. Some of it will heal, some will not. In 6 months you will have perhaps 70% function, maybe more with exercise. 70%. Greta tests the grip again, releases. I used to play piano. Brenner says nothing. There is nothing to say. She will never play piano again. They both know it. But she will have an arm. That is more than many can claim. 2 weeks pass. The wound closes from the inside out. Healthy pink tissue filling the void where infection once lived. The muscle knits together, imperfectly, with scar tissue that will never be as strong as the original. But it knits. Greta can make a fist now, can lift a cup, can write her name though the letters shake and wander. She practices constantly, flexing, squeezing, rotating her wrist through the limited range of motion that remains. Sarah Hayes brings her a rubber ball to squeeze. 10 repetitions every hour, she instructs. Greta does 20, then 30, then 50. The pain of exercise is clean, purposeful, so different from the rotting agony of infection. On the 18th day after surgery, Brenner arrives with news. Transfer orders, he says. You leave in 3 days. POW camp in France. Then repatriation when processing is complete. Greta nods slowly. She knew this was coming, has known since the moment she was captured, but somehow she still is not ready. What will happen to me after France? Brenner sits on the edge of her cot. It is a breach of protocol, but he does not care. You will go home, he says, to Germany, to whatever is left. What if there is nothing left? It is the question everyone is asking, the one no one can answer. Brenner looks at this girl who survived a barn explosion and a 5-day march and an infected wound that should have killed her 3 times over. Then you will build something new, he says. 3 days later, May 3rd, 1945. Greta wakes before dawn, her last day in the field hospital. She lies very still, watching the light change beyond the canvas walls. Gray to pink to pale gold. A new day arriving whether she is ready or not. Sarah Hayes comes at 7 a.m. with fresh bandages and a basin of warm water. Your last dressing change with me, she says. They have developed a routine over 3 weeks. Hayes unwraps. Greta breathes steady. Hayes examines. Greta looks away. Hayes rewraps. Greta says thank you. But today, Greta watches. The wound has transformed. What was once a jagged infected gash is now a thick, pinkish, white scar. It runs from her wrist to mid-forearm, raised, ropey, permanent, but closed, healed, alive. It is ugly, Greta says. Hayes pauses in her wrapping. It is proof you survived. Is there a difference? Hayes smiles. Ask me again in 20 years. At 9 a.m., Captain Brenner arrives for a final examination. He does not speak at first, just unwraps the bandage Hayes applied 2 hours earlier, studies the scar with the same professional detachment he brought to that first examination 3 weeks ago. Then he begins his tests. Flex your fingers. Greta does. All 5 fingers curl. The movement is stiff, limited, but present. Rotate your wrist. She rotates. Maybe 40 degrees of motion. Normal is 90, but it is enough. Make a fist. She makes a fist. The thumb still does not quite reach the palm, but it is close. Brenner presses along the length of the scar, checking for hot spots, for swelling, for any sign the infection might return. Everything is cool, quiet, healed. The wound is healed well, he says. You will have full use of this arm, not perfect, but functional. It is what he has been telling her for days. But this time it sounds different, final, real. Greta looks at him, this American doctor who cut her open and put her back together, who sat by her cot through the night when she was dying, who used medicine meant for his own soldiers to save an enemy. The question has been building in her for 3 weeks. She has to ask it now, before she leaves, before she never sees him again. Why did you do this, she asks. Brenner could give a simple answer, could talk about the Geneva Convention, or medical ethics, or the oath he took when he became a doctor. But he looks at Greta and sees something more than a patient. He sees a girl who has been told her whole life what she is worth, what she deserves, who she is allowed to be. And he thinks about Margaret, about the doctor who decided she was not worth saving because she could not pay. You are the enemy, Greta continues. Her voice is steady, clear. I shot at your planes. My friends killed your soldiers. You could have let me die. It would have been easier, safer. No one would have questioned it. Brenner is quiet for a long moment. Then he says what he has been learning to say for 20 years, what he needed someone to say to that doctor who turned Margaret away. You are not my enemy, he says. You are a patient, and that is the only thing that matters in this room. The words settle between them like a covenant. Greta's eyes fill with tears, but she does not look away. I will remember that, she whispers. For the rest of my life, I will remember that someone saw me as a person, not a German, not a soldier, not the enemy, just a person who needed help. Brenner nods, rewraps the bandage one final time, ties it off with practiced efficiency. Keep it clean. Change the dressing daily. Exercise the hand even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. I will. And Greta, he meets her eyes, live. Do not just survive. Live. That is the best way to honor the ones who did not make it. She cannot speak, can only nod. At noon, 2 military police officers arrive with transfer papers. Greta stands, steadier than she was 3 weeks ago, stronger. She walks past the other POWs. Stahl nods to her. Vogel raises one hand in farewell. At the entrance to the ward, she stops, turns back. Sarah Hayes stands beside the empty cot, watching. Greta raises her left arm, the wounded one, the saved one, holds it up so Hayes can see. Hayes touches her own heart, then extends her hand palm forward, a gesture of blessing, of hope. Then Greta is gone. Outside the sun is bright, warm, spring arriving in earnest. A truck idles near the hospital entrance. Its canvas back already holds a dozen other prisoners, men mostly, a few women, all being transported to the same uncertain future. Greta climbs in, sits on the hard wooden bench, cradles her bandaged arm against her chest. The truck lurches forward. Through the gap in the canvas, she watches the field hospital recede, the building that was a factory before the war, that will be a factory again when the war ends. She does not know if she will ever see Captain Brenner again, does not know if she will make it through repatriation, does not know what Hamburg looks like now or if her family is still alive to return to. But she knows this. She is alive. And someone chose to make that possible. The truck turns a corner. The hospital disappears from view. Greta closes her eyes, feels the sun on her face through the canvas, feels her heart beating steady and strong in her chest. Lives. The war ends 5 days later. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The fighting stops. The dying continues in slower, quieter ways, but the shooting finally stops. Captain Nathaniel Brenner returns to Pennsylvania in December 1945. He resumes his civilian practice, treats broken bones and appendicitis and all the ordinary emergencies of peacetime medicine. He never speaks publicly about his service in Europe. When reporters call asking for stories, he declines. When veterans groups invite him to speak, he sends his regrets. Once a local newspaper manages to corner him at a town hall meeting. They ask about the war, about the soldiers he saved. "I did my job," he says. "Many others did the same." They press for details, specific cases, heroic moments. He looks at the reporter with tired eyes and says only this: "Every patient was the same to me. That was the point." He never mentions a 19-year-old German girl with an infected arm. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes remains in the Army Nurse Corps after the war. She serves in Korea, then retires as a major in 1968. She dies in 1998 at the age of 85. Among her personal papers donated to a military history archive, there is a single photograph. It shows the interior of a field hospital, metal cots in rows, canvas walls, hanging lights. On the back in faded ink, someone has written, "Western Germany, April 1945. The girl with the infected arm. I hope she made it." The photograph is filed with 1,000 others, catalogued, preserved, forgotten by everyone except the archivists who maintain such collections. No one knows if the girl made it. Records from the repatriation period are incomplete, especially for women auxiliaries. Thousands returned to a Germany that no longer existed, to cities bombed to rubble, to families scattered or dead. Some rebuilt, some did not survive the peace. There is no official record of a Margaret Meyer treated for an infected forearm wound at an American field hospital near Kassel in April 1945. Either the name was changed during processing, or the records were lost, or she was one of thousands whose stories end where the documentation ends. But in 1946, a photograph appears in a Hamburg newspaper. It shows the dedication of a new hospital built from the ruins of the old. Among the staff assembled for the photograph is a young nurse, early 20s, thin from rationing, dark hair pulled back, white uniform. She stands slightly apart from the others, her left hand hidden behind her back. If you look closely at the photograph, if you enlarge it and adjust the contrast, you can see something on her forearm, a thick line of scar tissue running from wrist to elbow. The nurse's name tag is blurred in the photograph. The resolution is not good enough to read. It could be anyone. Germany had 1 million young women with scars in 1946, 1 million stories of survival, 1 million wounds that healed or did not. But sometimes, in the quiet hours when the archive is empty, the archivists look at that photograph and wonder. They wonder if she made it home, if she found her family, if she lived the life that Captain Brenner fought to give her. They wonder if she kept her promise, if she remembered. They will never know. But what they know is this: in a war that killed 60 million people, the decision to save even one life mattered. It mattered because medicine does not take sides, because suffering is suffering regardless of the uniform it wears, because a patient is a patient, and that is enough. The photograph remains in the archive, filed under German Medical Services, Post-War Reconstruction, 1946. Unidentified, unclaimed, unknowable, but not forgotten, never forgotten.